Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. So, Andy, you know what I think we're ready to actually talk about out loud?
No, Pinky.
Yes, Brain, but how are we going to get the octopus up there?
Tonight, we're going to take over the world.
Genius. No, that's not what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about YouTube.
Good old YouTube. What about YouTube, Pete?
Do you spend much time at the YouTube?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't expect that. I did not expect that.
Well, I enjoy watching trailers.
You must be a millennial.
Yeah, I like to stay current.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, what I hear, this is all the rage now, is bastardizing YouTube for its real purpose, which is to watch video and instead put a bunch of audio up there. But what I gather is that there are people who live inside of YouTube to the point where they prefer to listen to podcasts in YouTube. Did you know that this was a thing?
I didn't.
Apparently,
and I think
it's
it's fantastic.
I do too.
Let's exploit it.
That's exactly what we're doing. And so I have started putting all of the current shows up on YouTube. So as I post the rest of the shows, usually probably an hour and a half after the show goes live for podcast listeners, it will show up miraculously inside of YouTube. And you can, so if you're a YouTube subscriber, go to our, search for our channel. You can find it over on our website, thenextreel.com, and you can go subscribe to the channel. Not many people even know that it exists. We have like 7 subscribers right now, and I think 3 of them are me. And you can watch the show. We've had some people find them so far though, and start watching them. So it's very strange because you can actually see the stats and see if people are actually, listening.
I love it.
Casino Royale, 87 views. I don't even know what any of this means. I'm so wildly new to YouTube. It's a completely foreign territory to me. But I put up playlists for the Speakeasy, for Shorts, for the Film Board, and for we've got 3 of a Kind, Steve Sarmento series. So we've got more shows coming up, and so look for the playlist. You can subscribe to playlists or the whole thing, and there you go. That's YouTube.
14 people have watched our The Women episode, Pete.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. It's not quite as popular as Casino Royale, but it is second.
Actually, that's not entirely true. I think that there is one with more views. Oh, I can't remember what it is. Anyway, there's one with more views. Maybe it's Vacation or no. It was Glen Ross. 133 views.
Wow.
Taking the world by storm. Audio on a video platform. It's the future.
That is so funny.
So that's where we are. Find us over on YouTube. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, and I was gobsmacked that I was finally able to do this today. Gobsmacked, Andy. And that is Apple Podcasts or iTunes comments from around the world. Go ahead.
I
think that
love it.
Share your mind, what it looks like when your mind is blown. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much what it was like.
One of the things that I have always found myself really flustered by is the fact that, we live in the United States, and so it is impossible for us, or I should say, very difficult for us to see and track iTunes podcast comments, reviews from around the world. And so rather than solve that problem, for years, I have elected to pretend it does not exist.
Yeah, you've kind of left it to me to kind of sort through
yes.
in a very tedious way, try finding comments around the world. It's not an easy process.
It is not. But today I don't know what it was. I must have taken just the right shower, and I figured it out, and we now have a way to track all 155 countries that the iTunes store operates in, and we are tracking comments from everywhere. And thank you. Just a sampling. Obviously, our dear friends to the north, Canada, Australia, dear friends in Australia, United Kingdom, Sweden, Germany, and Kuwait are some new comments from around the world. So thank you, everybody who has done due diligence and gone into the Apple Podcasts app or iTunes and left us a comment. We really, really appreciate it. We appreciate it even more now that we know that it's there, and to Ali Alin in Kuwait, thanks, man. And we're going to try and talk about some more foreign films for you. We appreciate that. That's a great request. So anyhow, this is terrific, and it was a great thing to discover today. It's heartwarming, and to
really cool.
see the things from around the world, and nobody hates us around the world. That's even better.
It's nice. It's nice to know that it's like a global hug.
It is. It's a global hug. That's what it is. So there you go. So that's the other. I think that was the other thing. Thank you for those reviews. If I do see from our analytics that Overcast users they're growing like crazy. And for you folks, we would sure appreciate it if you would share and recommend the show in Overcast. That's really helpful. So I think that's it. Did I miss anything, Andy? This was not a very I don't know, weird cold open, was it?
No, it was kind of very
Pretty dry.
It was. But hey, sometimes things are drier. Sometimes things have more moisture,
Stop.
The yin and the yang.
Stop
Did you mention
using
Apple
those
Podcasts?
words. I did. I
Okay.
said that. I said Apple
I couldn't remember if
Podcasts.
you said that specific.
I did
pair of
Apple
words
Podcasts
together.
or iTunes. But Apple actually has requested that we stop using iTunes. I think they recognize how terrible of an application it is. So please use Apple Podcasts. If you are an Apple user on iTunes or on iTunes, on your iPhone or iPad or iPod Touch, Apple Podcasts, it's the word of the day. And it's much easier to go into the store there and search for it. It's much easier to leave a review that way than to go into iTunes and do it. So
Excellent.
that's it. I think I'm done with the ne's. Do you have
Phew.
anything? Are we done?
I was just going to tell people that I took a trip down to a little neighbor today or yesterday. Actually,
You're gonna spoil it because I haven't been there.
all I'm going to say is I enjoyed my trip down the lane. That's all I'm going to say.
Number 10? Is that what you're talking
Number
about?
10. Yeah, number 10.
I'm gonna see it this week. Stop.
I good, because I'm going to spoil it for you next week if you don't.
What I have heard is that even kids like it.
I'm not sure which kids those are, but it's not going to be mine. My kids will not enjoy it. I can tell you that after watching it.
I love it, Andy. I can't wait. I'm gonna take your what? Your 9-year-old? I think your 9-year-old would love it.
The one who was so traumatized by The Finest Hours. Yes.
I think that's good, Andy. Let's tell the people where we're from.
Where are we from?
This is The Next Reel on rashpixel.fm, everybody. I'm Pete Wright, and that there is Andy Nelson.
Hello.
And we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, the third in our 2016 edition of our Films of 1939 series with a film we actually like, Victor Fleming et al.'s The Wizard of Oz. Before we get into that, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com. Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Overcast, YouTube, or your podcast app of choice. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel. And if you've ever wondered what it would be like to have a brain, then you know what might just be your speed? The Next Reel's Instagram, hashtag Pony Prize, hashtag Guess the Movie Challenge.
And with that, let's follow the yellow brick road to the Emerald City. The Emerald Island. Their much less green neighbor, Scotland, and check in with Mr. Scarecrow. Mr. Brains. Mr. Smart, Stephen Smart.
Hey guys, there are a few movies that come up as regular guesses. One of which is the 1961 comedy 1, 2, 3, directed by Billy Wilder and starring James Cagney. So it should come as no surprise that at Figfig guessed it on Image 1 last week. So congrats at Figfig, you are entered once again into the 2016 Pony Prize hat. As always, a new challenge starts on Monday, so thanks guys and see you later.
We do have some follow-up. We've got a blot spot.
Yes, we do.
Oh, dear.
Blot spot for Stagecoach. I am struggling with this 1939 series, and Stagecoach didn't help. I liked a few scenes, but for some reason I did not care at all about the journey. It felt like the story was flat, and there was never any escalation to the danger. Geronimo could have struck in the first 5 minutes or the last 5, so it was just a waiting game. The movie was clearly intended to be about the character interactions more than the potential ambush. I just wish I was more invested in those characters. The only one I really liked was Thomas Mitchell, because he made me laugh. Your rank 116, my rank 206.
Ooh.
Yep.
Ben Lott with the burn, the flick burn.
The flick burn.
It's not character interactions, it's character interreactions. I think we established this. This is settled science.
I think they're interactions except for one.
Yes, right.
Who was interreacting.
It was interreacting. That's what this film is about. Andy, it's time. Let's do trailers. I'm going to go first because I was full of glee when I saw this trailer. And Tim Burton hasn't filled me with glee in a long time. If ever.
Ever?
Well, that's not true. No, you're right. I'm being too hard on him. But I was filled with glee when I saw the trailer for Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, written by Jane Goldman from the Ransom Riggs novel. Stars Eva Green, Samuel L. Jackson, Ender Asa Butterfield is in it. Allison Janney, Kim Dickens, Ella Purnell. Judi Dench is back from the dead. Chris O'Dowd, Rupert Everett, Terrence Stamp, Ella Washelt, Milo Parker. There's a bunch of kids in here, but I'm telling you, they're all great. I love what this film looks like. I think in terms of I think you know how much I love seeing movies where they take kids to fantastical places, and so this feels like kind of what I wanted for the next chapter of Harry Potter. You know what I mean? Just I want to see just even more craziness, and I think Tim Burton might be the guy to do it. What did you think?
I completely agree. I think it looks just exactly the sort of thing that I want to see out of Tim Burton. It looks magical, fantastical. It's the sort of thing that as a kid I would have just been completely drawn to. Everything about it just really, really works. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I haven't really been a huge fan. I mean, I missed Big Eyes. I didn't see that. But before that, I mean, geez, probably Sweeney Todd. I mean, I liked Sweeney Todd quite a bit. I know you liked Big Fish quite a bit.
I loved Big. You're right. I was gleeful at Big Fish, and weirdly, I think I was also gleeful at Sweeney Todd.
Yeah, I was too.
Yeah.
Before that, probably Ed Wood back in the mid-90s.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's been a very long time.
Well, so. And back at the time, Batman. It hit me
at the time.
It hit me just there. Boy, did that not hold up, though.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a while, but I think for me, it was really the rest of the movies really just kind of sunk that one. But I mean, Beetlejuice, is that and Pee-wee's Big Adventure were the two films that I think had a lot of the charm for me as a youngster that I really still enjoy. And this looks to have that. It looks like he's tapping into that.
I think so too. I am excited to see it, and I think it's going to be great. So it comes out September 30th, 2016 in the USA. Looks like it opens just earlier than that, September 29th, Brazil, Portugal, Singapore, UK, September 30th. So UK, Sweden, and USA, all September 30th, 2016.
Nice.
Yeah, that's it. What's yours?
I am a little bit of a Tom Hanks fan.
Oh, really? I sense a gleeful trailer review from you, too.
I hope so. I mean, as much as I love Tom Hanks, I mean, I really do. A Hologram for the King by Tom Tykwer looks like a really interesting film. I can't quite figure out if it's going to be something that I end up liking or not, but at least what I like about Tykwer is he does some really interesting things with his stories. And I mean, we talked about Run Lola Run on the show,
Cloud
and
Atlas,
also Cloud Atlas on the film board, and I really like those. And I missed Perfume, but I hear good things, and so I think with his stuff, I always am going to give him a shot, and with Tom Hanks, I'll definitely give him a shot. This it looks like an interesting film. It's based on a novel by Dave Eggers about a failed businessman who is going to try to recoup his losses by traveling to Saudi Arabia and selling his idea, which is kind of it looks like a video conference hologram sort of thing, to a wealthy monarch. While there, he suffers an anxiety attack and ends up kind of falling for the woman who comes to his rescue and kind of helps him medically. Sarita Chowdhury plays her. And I love this vibe of this, kind of this cross-cultural romance that's going on here, and this guy trying to find himself. I mean, you and I are both big fans of that Ben Stiller. Why am I blanking? Walter Mitty.
Yeah, Walter Mitty.
Film, Secret Life of Walter Mitty. And I think maybe it just taps into something in our lives. But I really enjoy these stories about somebody trying to kind of figure out who they are, and the story of Tom Hanks's character on this search really kind of, struck a nerve with me. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this one.
I'm a fan of Dave Eggers, and I'm really excited to see what comes of this. I loved Away We Go and Where the Wild Things Are. I thought they both struck a very different vibe for me. He did the screenplay for those, and so I'm in terms of story development, I really like what he does, and so based on that and Run Lola Run alone, I wasn't as big of a fan of of Cloud Atlas, I think, as you were, and it was a little bit frustrating. I've since read the book again and seen the movie again, and it's, it didn't improve all that much for me, but my goodness, I did love Run Lola Run. I love those, and so I thought this looked like a wonderful mashup of crazy cultural stuff that I think they get to play with in a really awesome setting, and it's I love seeing more of a normal kind of love story in a culture that we are not accustomed to seeing that for a big budget kind of international release. So I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be worth checking out. When's it hit?
This one's going to be opening April 22nd here in the States, and then it's going to slowly roll out into Germany, Sweden, and the UK the rest of April and May, and who knows from there.
Well, I'm excited about it.
So, Pete.
Yeah?
What do they got that I ain't got?
Courage!
You can say that again.
Many, many miles east of nowhere lies the amazing land of Oz, a magnificent empire created in the mind of a man who wrote a great book about it. Like wildfire in the wheat field, the fabulous tale of the Wizard of Oz spread from town to city, to nation, to the entire world. Although the Wizard of Oz has captivated the children of 4 generations and fired the imaginations of those youthful adults who have never grown old, although 10 million copies of the book have reached eager hands and eager hearts, no one has dared the towering task of giving life and reality to the land of Oz and its people. Every delightful character of L. Frank Baum's classic is now reborn. Every glorious adventure has been recaptured and painted with a rainbow. The celebration in Munchkinland, the flying monkeys, the rescue of Dorothy, the castle of the witch, the palace of Oz, and Dorothy's strange journey to the Emerald City to find the wonderful Wizard of Oz himself.
We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz. We hear he is the Wizard of Wiz, if ever a Wiz there was. If ever a Wiz there was, the Wizard of Oz is one because of the wonderful things he does. We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz.
1939, Andy, The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, yes.
The tale of a young murderess misused by a community of gleeful cowards for her uncanny skill and naivete. Her dog is also present. It's true.
Yes, I guess. Is it fair to call her a murderess? Is she intentionally dropping her house on this poor woman?
Was she not sent to dispose of the witch?
Wow. That is too funny.
This is we actually watched this as a double feature, Wizard of Oz and American Psycho, in my house.
That
should have been really a series.
Oh, man. Too funny. I really love this movie. I mean, it just, I don't know. It's one of those movies that it's always worked for me. And as a kid, it's just something I really connected with. And as an adult, I still connect with it. I can easily just sit back and watch. And yes, as somebody who can look at stuff critically now, as opposed to when I was seeing this as a young child, there certainly are some, I guess you would call them kind of just story points and issues that I think probably I don't think work as well. But to be honest, those are in a movie like this, I just don't know how much I care. And it's really hard for me to accept any critical side from my brain when I'm watching it. I just kind of turn that off and just go with it.
I'm with you. I don't know. I don't want this to be a complete, love-in for Wizard of Oz, but it's one of those movies that just sort of, as soon as the music starts, it just kind of greases the skids for me to turn off that the hypercritical part of my brain. And I find that it just touches. It's such a beautiful kind of textbook cinematic story. It sort of hits all of the right points, and that with the incredible color and vibrance and the crazy voices, and I think learning more about it in research for this conversation has just made me love it and sometimes question it, but love it mostly even more. The script is from Noel Langley, Florence Ryerson, Edgar Allan Wolfe, it came together with a lot of people.
Those are the credited writers.
Yeah.
I mean, Langley ended up being the 14th writer who had worked on this thing. I mean, there were a lot of people who came and went as they worked on this thing, kind of fashioning the script. But yeah, the three people who ended up receiving credit are Langley, Ryerson, and Wolfe.
It's a funny thing, this film, because it was also, directed by a number of people, many uncredited people. And usually when we have films that cross that line of having too many people in the writer's chair
cooks.
And too many cooks, the movie ends up confusing and just crazy. And in this case, I'm, maybe just the journey itself was such a crazy acid trip that, that didn't matter.
Yeah, although it's funny. I made a note that it was very funny that George Cukor, who spent a little time on this film, although didn't actually shoot anything, but it really was kind of his second film in 1939 that was shot in black and white with a fashion show by Adrian in glorious Technicolor right in the middle.
That's a great connection.
It was, it's very funny that that ended up working out, and I think George Cukor, I don't know, I feel like he ended up getting the short end of the stick in 1939 because he kind of, he helped out a little bit here. I think that was good, but then he went to do The Women, and he helped out on Gone with the Wind, but that didn't go so well.
Didn't work out, yeah. Well, poor George, but in the end, the film that came out of it was terrific. It's an adaptation from the book, the series of books. I have not read any more than the series, than that part of the series by L. Frank Baum. But have you read the book? When's the last time you hit the book?
I actually have never read the book, and no, and I know L. Frank Baum wrote 14 books, 14 Oz books. And then since then, it has been just a series that has been continued by many people in book form, in graphic novel. I mean, it's never really ended. I think the official Baum, family has kind of sanctioned a good number of those books. And, I actually just picked up for my kids on the Kindle, you can buy for like the entire set of all 14 of Baum's books for like $4. So I just got all those, and now my daughter started reading them. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look into that. What do you hear about changes from the book? I mean, did they? How much of it has been mutilated for screen?
It's one of those books that I think that it's fair to say they followed pretty closely. I think there are some changes throughout. I mean, inevitably there are going to be changes that have to get made, and things like in the book the shoes were silver, and they changed them to ruby slippers for the movie, and really that was because of the Technicolor, and silver just didn't show up very well in Technicolor, and so they wanted a color that was a little more vibrant, and decided to do it with ruby because that would pop so much. And the whole Kansas, the bit in Kansas, kind of the open close of the film, that was really an addition to this film, because in the book, I mean, I think it's like the third page, all of a sudden the tornado comes and whoosh, she's gone off to Kansas. And in the movie, they kind of treat it like the whole thing, the whole trip to Oz is really a dream, whereas in the book, this tornado kind of takes her house and actually deposits her in Oz. So it's actually much more of her actually going there. And all the stuff about, the different connections of, the three farmhands to her three friends, and the nasty Miss Gulch to the witch, all that stuff was just kind of, stuff that was added. So, I mean, it's a lot of that sort of stuff. I think for the most part, they got the core of the story. And I think that really is the key here.
And I think it's fascinating just how well it holds up in the film, and that's what Last week I made the point that I said that we were going to watch this for family movie night, and my kids are boring. Turns out it wasn't. I think they really, really enjoyed it. What is it that you think connects with such a wide range of such a wide demographic? Why is it that you and I can be so well connected to this film, and so can our young kids?
For me, I think it boils down to a few things. One, I think it's kind of, I guess you could say it's kind of a hero's journey type of story. It's this person who's put into this environment, not by choice, who then has to, kind of buck up and find some strength to pursue this journey so that she can find her way home. And over the process of that, learn and grow and kind of become a stronger person. And I think as a young kid watching that and seeing Dorothy's journey as she's I think, Judy Garland is just so easy to connect with for any age. I think there's something really honest about her performance, but I think it's just the way that it's written and this character who has to kind of find herself and find this strength to take this journey to, one, get to the Emerald City, and then from there go and get the broomstick from the witch, and then really evaluate. I think that's kind of a key part of this story, that she has to stand there. When Glinda comes down after Dorothy misses her balloon ride, Glinda comes down and talks to her, and it's like, you weren't ready at the time, and you had to really learn about why, what it would take to go home. And Dorothy has to kind of talk about it and realize the importance of home, the importance of, and not just home. I think home is kind of a grander thing, not just like the physical presence of her home, but it's the core of being with those people that mean something to her. And I think that message is another key thing that people can so easily attach to is what does that mean to you, and finding that place in the world. And that's really what this film is about for me. And I think that's why people from all ages can connect to it so easily.
Yeah, I mean, we're teaching kids you can get what you want by killing the elderly.
Hell yeah.
What I think is so wonderful about it is, some of these moments, I think, when we meet these the characters early on, they have such really kind of nice, naive, young sort of conversations with Judy Garland, with Dorothy, as we meet the farmhands and as we meet Auntie Em, and then we get to go meet Professor Marvel, and he takes advantage of her. Early on, and we get to sort of see what is that really what they do with the as he's staring into the what is the thing, the crystal ball. It's fantastic.
How is he taking advantage over there?
Well, he's like tricking her. He says, close your eyes, and then he's looking at her picture, and he's looking at a picture which he's like taking advantage, like demonstrating what it is to, quote, sort of read somebody in an inauthentic way.
Well, yeah. If this was a less innocent film, Professor Marvel could have really turned this film into Room.
That you took it darker than I intended.
I wasn't quite sure which direction you were going with.
No, that was Room was darker than this was not. That was, you are responsible for that. In the international iTunes comments, blame Andy.
That was on me.
But I think we need to see that, because that's about as real and as sort of grimy as the film ever gets, really, besides, I guess, the flying monkeys. But we need to see that, the real world is sort of like that, because as soon as it gets into fantastical, the sort of fantastic journey of Oz, we have to have something to kind of compare it to. It's color versus black and white. It's something to kind of represent. And we also have this character as in Professor Marvel who comes back and he's sort of he has his own character redemption in that particular portrayal at the very end of the film when he comes to check on her. And I think that ends up being a really nice kind of bookend.
Yeah, and I think what's also important is that they structure this film with such broad characters that are big, and I think that also helps people really connect with them. I think you get such just amazing performances from Judy, like I already said, as Dorothy, but also her friends and the witch. I mean, everyone is just painted so well as a very particular character that it's so easy to kind of pinpoint them without having to spend too much time trying to kind of sort out their psyche and everything. And sure, they all have these character flaws, which I think that is a real interesting strength with this film also, is how everybody is portrayed as somebody who's struggling with an issue that they're trying to overcome in their life. And it's a great way for kids to get a sense. Now, I mean, it's sorted out pretty easily in the end, but it is kind of really nice how everybody is trying to find a way to deal with, if I only had the brains, if I only had courage, if I only had a heart, if I only, could get home, and just trying to deal with those sorts of things. It's a really interesting way for young people to start learning about how you can, make changes to yourself and improve yourself.
Yeah, I think so. It's funny because then Oz becomes, her subconscious, right? I mean, it's where she's processing everything that she has taken in about the people in her real life. As soon as she gets there, she gets to see them and their faces and them going through their own personal journey, and that's where she gets to come to terms with what she's experiencing. I think that ends up being a very powerful metaphor that you don't necessarily need, but for me, it actually makes it makes the movie better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've heard some people complaining that, Dorothy, it's not even, she doesn't learn that much. She kills this witch completely by accident. It's all this happenstance situation. She's trying to put out this fire because the witch sets Scarecrow on fire, and she's trying to throw this bucket of water on that and ends up getting the witch wet, and the witch dies. And it's just one of those moments where it's like, okay, the antagonist dies really easily. But that's if you also look at the witch as the antagonist. I think really the wizard is largely the antagonist of the film, and the witch is kind of a sub-antagonist, if you will. I mean, obviously it's a key character, but really her battle is with the wizard and trying to get home. And I think that the learning moment for her happens after she's left behind in the balloon, like I've already said, and having to really kind of sort through those things.
Right, and she and her friends had to use their wits to like break their way through the curtain that was both the metaphorical curtain and the character curtain of the wizard to actually get him on their side and turn him. I think that's a really good point. And it's easy to mistake the witch as the antagonist, but she's really not. She's another obstacle in the journey.
Yeah, but man, what a great obstacle. Yeah. I mean, you talked about how, Professor Marvel is kind of the worst of it, but man, the witch, she just says some things that I'm like, man,
yeah.
What is it like, the thing, a pocket full of spears, and, it's, we'll torture them slowly, or just the way that she says things, yeah. Man, no wonder when they were re-editing this film, they had to cut out a lot of the witch's lines because kids were so terrified of her that parents were having to carry them out of the theater. Oh, I love it.
That's pretty good.
The cynic in me, this round as I was watching it, I was kind of like, okay, so the beginning of the film, we have Miss Gulch who comes and gets Toto because Toto has been a menace, and she's going to take Toto to the sheriff so the sheriff can destroy him. And Miss Gulch is terrible and all that. And then as she's driving away on her bicycle, Toto hops out and runs back to Dorothy.
The dog is so threatening that we put him in a light wicker basket.
That's right. But I love how, if you pay attention to this film, it's like, okay, so there's a tornado, Dorothy gets knocked unconscious. When she comes to, everything's hunky-dory. But if you think about it, okay, so Miss Gulch is probably going to realize, after the tornado, that dog got away. I'm going to go back to that house and get him. It's like, okay, so is that the end of Toto then? Is Toto going to die? Like, post-Wizard of Oz, she comes back and gets Toto and takes him back in a lockbox and throws him into the water. Like, what happens?
Andy, I think we all know that the next day, Toto went off to live on another farm with the family.
Right.
And that's all we need to tell the kids.
Yes. Don't tell them, children. No,
yeah.
This is what happens when you're adult and you start thinking about these things too much. Oh, it's terrible. It is terrible. I also thought it was funny that this is like a precursor to Lassie and all those films where, you've got this dog that barks and everybody just kind of understands what the dog is saying. When Toto comes up to Scarecrow and Lion and the Tin Man and starts barking, and they know, oh, we got to follow you because you know where Dorothy is, and they just run off with it. It's like, I love that. I love that that this is kind of the cinematic start of that.
Yeah. That's right. And she doesn't have very many friends. Like, we don't get to, so she hangs out in a barn all day.
Yeah, just hanging out with the farmhands.
Yeah.
What's interesting about that is initially there was going to be a relationship with Dorothy. I don't know if relationship's the right word, but they were going
guarantee you that is not the right word.
It's completely the wrong word. But she was going to have a strong friendship with Hunk, the guy who is the Scarecrow. And that relationship was going to be a strong friendship in the regular world in Kansas. And that's why at the end of the film, she still says in the current version, she still says, "I'm going to miss you most of all," because there was going to be more of this, precursor to a romance between the two of them.
Why is it that didn't make it?
I wonder.
Well, it's not so much that I wonder really legitimately, because I feel like you watch the film and they go into Oz and they have the strongest of the relationships. He's the Scarecrow is the first one that she meets, and they end up walking arm in arm the longest through the course of the film, and I think that is the strongest of the relationships. I mean, but, because the way you say it, I mean, when you say it the way you say it, it sounds illicit, and we know that it's not illicit. They can have a strong relationship, uncle-niece kind of a relationship, but it makes me wonder, was it cut for like some sort of prurient like value system, or was it cut for time, or what? You know what I mean?
Well, I think some of it was time. I think a lot of stuff was cut for time, but I think there was supposed to be a feeling that that this would develop into a relationship once she kind of grew up. I mean, that's kind of what I read about it. So I don't know. I'm not saying it's an illicit relationship that was supposed to happen right now. It was just supposed to feel like these two, as she grew up, it was, he was the guy for her.
Okay.
I don't know. That's a little weird to me.
All right, I'll give it to you.
I think that's why they cut it, because it's just weird.
Well, and maybe it would have been different had it been Shirley Temple playing Dorothy and not a much more mature-looking Judy Garland.
Yeah, I think that also does it. I don't know why all of a sudden this strikes me as the relationship in Phantom Menace, but it's the same sort of thing. It's like, I have a hard time buying that Natalie Portman fell in love with Jake Lloyd. If Jake Lloyd was portrayed by a 12-year-old like he was initially scripted, I would have had an easier time buying that they could have fallen in love,
Yeah. No,
I don't know why I'm comparing Phantom Menace to Wizard of Oz.
I was going to say, as it is, I think you regret that comparison already.
I do.
Oh, dear. Okay, can we talk about Victor Fleming now?
Yes, Victor Fleming, a.k.a. Mr. Fix-It.
So this guy was a former stunt driver. That's awesome. A professional race car driver gone film director.
He is a really fantastic guy. And, I think he's one of those directors that you just don't give a lot of credit to, but he's pretty spectacular. I think that you look at kind of his body of work, he's got a lot of good stuff in there. 50
credits through 1956. And some of them I have seen and like very much. But some of his best work was as a cinematographer, and starting in the early 1900s, 1916, 17, he did a number of films as cinematographer and then director for the early Douglas Fairbanks films. What do you like so much about him?
I think he's a director who just has a solid sense of storytelling. I think what I've gleaned from watching this and Gone with the Wind, both of which he is responsible for in 1939. This is a guy who can come onto a project and he just seems to have a strong sense of storytelling and how to tell a story, whether it is an incredible epic about the Civil War and people in it, or if it's a fantastical film that's aimed in kind of, I guess you could say, in the world of kids, but can really tap into the magic and the just the characters and the strengths in both of those stories and find the right way to tell both of them. I think the fact that he did both of these films just is a real testament for what he can do. And knowing that he came onto this film as, I believe, the third director. Richard Thorpe was first. They weren't very impressed with him. I think he worked for 9 or 10 days, and they had to stop production because Buddy Ebsen, who at the time was playing Tin Man, had to leave the production because he got aluminum dust poisoning from the aluminum dust they were painting him with, kind of foolishly at the time. So at the same time, they had to stop production to let Buddy Ebsen go heal up and find a new Tin Man. They brought in, or they looked at the footage and realized that Thorpe was just churning out stuff that wasn't good at all. He made Dorothy kind of look like a baby, a lot of weird things. And so they got rid of him, brought in George Cukor to kind of help stuff while they figured things out. And George Cukor actually helped find a better direction for Dorothy, found a better direction for the witch, a lot of that sort of stuff. Also cast Jack Haley as the Tin Man. And then they brought in Fleming, and he had like days to prepare for this film. And he jumped on just whole hog, went full steam, and worked for months cranking out all sorts of great stuff. He did all the stuff in Technicolor, and then he ended up having to leave because he got the call to head over to Selznick's to do Gone with the Wind. And so he did all the Technicolor stuff, and then he had to leave before he could do the Kansas stuff. And so actually King Vidor came in to do all the Kansas sequences. And but I think that it's really impressive that Fleming was able to just tap into exactly what this film needed, the way that the actors needed to perform, the way that the story needed to flow, and get it all right to create an incredibly magical world. Because I'm hard pressed looking at this and Gone with the Wind and really feeling like there was a lot of like he was just pulling the same tricks in both films. I think he does them both with a lot of the right moves for the right stories that the right type of story that he was telling in each case.
I think so too, and I think this one showcases just how simple, how a simple story, a simple visual story, can be, really touching in a way that I think Gone with the Wind offers so much more complexity in the way it handles the visuals and leads us through the journey of those characters. This one, it's very straightforward. I mean, we go to this place and then we follow, as you said. I mean, this is Joe Campbell would be thrilled. It is a textbook hero's journey, and he does it so clean, right? I mean, he just plays it really so clean that there's no way to get lost. There's no way to get sort of feel misled. I think it's just perfect.
Yeah, it really is.
And you don't ever feel like any of the over the top performances are out of place. Right, that was something that hit me this time. That the witch could have felt wildly out of place in another director's hands, and this, everything met in just the right way. The lion could have felt terrifically out of place in another director's hands, and I think he just really captured all the right people at all the right time. So I love it.
I think that like I was saying about. The previous director, Richard Thorpe. Thorpe had Dorothy wearing a blonde wig and had her wearing like really intense makeup to make her look like kind of this baby doll. Like I don't know exactly what Thorpe was going for, but I think Cukor and then Fleming were smart enough, like you said, to just tap into the right things and just find the right way to tell the story. And yeah, I as big as these characters are, they always feel so authentic to me.
Well, because it's so easy to see Dorothy. I can absolutely see where Thorpe would have wanted to go with Dorothy as kind of a toy, to put her into Munchkinland and make her fit in there, as if she went in through some transformation, through some crazy Narnia door, and ended up in this land, and somehow her persona had changed. I disagree with that. I think the way they ended up doing this in Fleming's hands to take her and make her a real person in this crazy, wonderful world actually highlights the contrast in a way that is really special.
Well, and it could have also come from the fact that Dorothy is much younger in the books.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah.
It could have been in the hands of Mervyn LeRoy. We've talked about him.
Yes, we have on the Bad Seed.
I think this would have been an interesting mashup.
The
Wizard of the Bad Seed. Yes, make Dorothy be the playman as the Bad Seed.
Hey, she's already killing a witch. She's got a taste for it now.
That's right, Dorothy, the Wizard of Oz. The little girl has a taste for blood.
Oh,
I can see it now.
That's pretty funny. That's great.
Glad he didn't get to direct.
Yeah, he wasn't quite ready. Mayer didn't feel he was really ready for it at the time. And I think it ended up in the right hands. But, we talked about LeRoy. He ended up directing. And, he's a guy who did a lot of good stuff. I mean, he started working in the 20s, and so he's just one of those guys who's done lots of great stuff, and this is just one of them. And I think he was really a solid producer, clearly, because he, as a producer with changing directors, changing actors, all that sort of stuff, found the right people to bring it and bring it to fruition.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's start busting through the cast, shall we?
I just also wanted to just point out Arthur Freed was on as an associate producer on this, and Arthur Freed, he wasn't credited, but he really is the guy. I think we have to give a lot of credit to him because he ended up as kind of the guy who brought the musical talent to this film. I mean, he is the guy who hired the key core, Herbert Stothart, Harold Arlen, and Yip Harberg as the musical people, and I think that is a huge element as to what makes this film what it is. So yeah. Arthur Freed, who would go on to be a quite an important producer in film after this.
All right, now let's talk about the cast. Can we talk about Judy Garland?
Yes. Boy, I tell you, I mean, she is so good. And it's so weird watching her thinking that, I honestly don't know much about kind of like the stories of MGM, if she really was getting all these drugs by the studio as far as, these young stars, her and Mickey Rooney, that they were giving them drugs to give them energy to work long days and then barbiturates to help them sleep all night. And, I really don't know how much of that is true, but it's just shocking to look at this young 16-year-old girl who I think is just so perfect for this role. And just, it kind of breaks my heart that it's entirely possible that she was already an addict at this time.
Yeah, that's a shame to even think about. She was terrific. She was on the verge of becoming a woman. Yes. They had her to wear a tight corset to minimize her breasts, to make her look young. And she was in competition with this. I think briefly they did have Shirley Temple in the running for this film, who was 11 at the time and obviously looked much younger. But I think it would have been a very different movie.
Well, and they even realized that. I mean, listening to people talk about it, they realized that, Shirley Temple, as much as she kind of might fit this young Dorothy from the books, she doesn't really have the mental understanding of what it would really take to deliver a performance in a film like this.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
She
was terrific.
She really is good. And, honestly, I've been thinking about it and I can't name another 16-year-old girl who has carried a film in a lead performance that has stuck with me as well as this one have. I just can't name a single one.
Oh, I got one.
What?
Haley Steinfeld, True Grit. Oh, wait, I got another one. I got Natalie Portman, The Professional.
No,
Christian Bale, Empire of the Sun. Boom.
That carries the film. A 16-year-old, I don't know. I don't think that Haley Steinfeld carries that film.
What?
No, I think that's Jeff Bridges carrying that film.
I don't know about you.
She's great, but I think Jeff Bridges carries that film. Likewise, likewise with Leon.
Jeff Bridges is a 16-year-old. True Grit. I'm just imagining now. It's a thought experiment.
Nice.
All right. Frank Morgan plays everybody in this film.
Yes, six roles. Professor Marvel, the Wizard, the Doorman, the Cabbie, the Guard. And it says the Doctor. I'm not quite sure who the Doctor is, but I think that it's actually just the Wizard's head is my understanding of what the sixth role is.
Okay.
Because I don't know if there is a Doctor. Can you name a Doctor?
I can't name a Doctor.
No. Interesting tidbit, Mickey Rooney, later in his life, I think it was in the 1980s when there was a stage version of The Wizard of Oz. He actually played the Wizard.
I did not know that. What about, let's go through I don't have anything else to say about Frank Morgan. He was great.
He's great. He's
great as everything. He's a charismatic circus performer, and I think he did a terrific job in every character he played. They were all the same in different clothes.
Apparently one of them, I can't remember if it's I want to say it's the Doorman. There's a part where his mustache, his mustache is pointing up at one point and then it's pointing down at another point. And there's a cut scene, and because I guess he actually talks about how he's like, and I quote, and when he says that, he actually is supposedly like pulls his mustache up like it's a start quote. And then when he finishes, he brings his mustache back down like that's his end quote.
Oh.
And I think that's a really funny little tidbit.
I don't think I've ever even noticed that.
Well, that's because I don't think you're the way that it's edited, and I don't think it's clear.
Through,
yeah.
Then we have the three kind gentlemen who are missing some things. Ray Bolger, Jack Haley, and Bert Lahr. as Hunk Scarecrow, Hickory Tin Man, and Zeke Cowardly Lion.
I just love these guys.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if you watched any footage of these guys outside of Wizard of Oz, but I was kind of blown away by some of the stuff these guys do. Like Ray Bolger is a dancing fool. It is nuts, the stuff that guy does. I mean, he's like a Fred Astaire sort. I mean, he's just his body is this lanky, crazy thing that he just moves all over the place. It's amazing to watch him.
Yeah, and you get a sense of that, and particularly when we first meet him as he's finding his legs, but nothing like you get in some of his other performances. I think you're right. It's terrific.
There was actually talk of him playing the Tin Man initially, and he kind of fought that because he's like, I can't, for the stuff that I do, there's no way I can be trapped in a tin outfit for the duration of the film.
Yeah.
And I think that's just completely correct because he is perfect as a Scarecrow.
He was perfect. He was part of the team, Sanford and Bolger, and he did all sorts of Broadway shows and definitely a old school song and dance man.
Yep. And he, interesting tidbit, but when he does his little math bit at the end, it's actually incorrect. So those brains ain't no good.
Brains ain't nothing.
Who needs them?
Jack Haley, you already mentioned he replaced Buddy Ebsen after the dust problems. Haley also developed an eye infection from the aluminum paste that they were using around his eyeballs, which turned out to be poisonous. Well done. Special
things
effects
they
makeup
learned.
People.
Things they learned. Yeah,
you have to learn it somewhere.
That's right. It's like cavemen learning what they can and can't eat.
Right. Right.
Just like that. Oh, but I do like Jack Haley. I think he's great in this, and he's I think that there's just something very kind of just sweet about him as Tin Man. He's never been my favorite of the three. But I do enjoy Jack Haley in this role quite a bit.
Who's your favorite?
Scarecrow.
Oh.
Between Scarecrow and Lion, I fluctuate.
I think so, too. You know what it is? The Tin Man is too mature.
Is he?
Don't you get the feeling?
You think that's
he's the mature one. Maybe it's just because he's so stiff.
I think it's because he's tin. He's just not as huggable.
That didn't work for me.
It's because when I was a child, I had a Tin Man doll, and he always cut me open. It's just terrible.
But you say so. I hear you say that you can. There are remnants of Buddy Ebsen still in the show somewhere.
Yeah, Buddy Ebsen. When they sang some of the songs, and it was the three of them singing "We're Off to See the Wizard," you can still hear Buddy Ebsen because the way they sang it, all three of them were recorded at the same time, and so they couldn't replace Ebsen's singing in those particular moments with Haley's. So you can still, I think that's the one place you can still hear a remnant of Buddy Ebsen in the film.
All right. The thing I love about Bert Lahr, well, I love a lot about Bert Lahr in this film, but the thing I did not know that really creeps me out is that his costume, real lion pelt.
Yep.
That's the worst thing that I've
disturbing.
Heard. That is the worst thing.
And it's, these sets were hot. I'm sure we'll talk more about that. And just the fact that he's wearing this incredibly heavy, hot costume that he's trapped in, and it's like real lion skin. It's like,
and
I don't know what they were thinking.
Now that you know that, you're listening to this, now that you know real lion pelt, go ahead and watch the movie again, and you will see it. And you will never have noticed it, but you'll see it right around the paws. You'll see the paws. You'll see everything. It is up the belly. Like, it is awful. It's awful. Yeah, he is really great. He was he was terrific. He was originally he dropped out of according to the big IMDb, he dropped out of high school or dropped out of school at 15 and became a vaudeville actor.
Yeah, they're all kind of vaudeville, and they actually for him pulled some kind of lines that he would say in his vaudeville shows. And he'd kind of put them in. They'd find ways to weave them into the script here. As long as it felt authentic to this world, they would find ways. Like there's that part where it starts snowing, and he says, what peculiar weather we're having, huh? Or whatever he says, and that was something that I guess he would say in his vaudeville acts. So little things like that, and I love that they kind of did that.
It is it's iconic vaudeville material to start talking about the weather. I can see why they would have wanted to pull that in. What a weird thing.
It is. And, later in his life, he did start painting lion paintings that I guess it was kind of one of those things that he would do. And I was poking around the internet trying to see if I could find any. I couldn't find any. I'd love to see what his little lion paintings looked like, but I'm sure they're fun to see.
Yeah.
And did you watch his potato chip commercials?
Yes.
Oh,
which one's your favorite?
Yeah, the devil one, Pete.
You got to describe it. This is not, we're on YouTube, but this is not a video, Andy.
No, I know. No, he did a couple where, he's, it's the nobody can eat just one. And the devil comes and offers a guy a potato chip. It's like, nobody can eat just one, gives him a potato chip, and then he won't give him the other one. And, basically, unless this guy goes to hell sort of thing. And of course, the guy grabs the chips and starts eating them because nobody can eat just one. It's terrible. And then the other one is like the most non-PC commercial. Oh my goodness. It's kind of a cowboys and Indians sort of one, and I guess you can just imagine from there.
Well, we're big on racial stereotypes here in the Next Reel.
Oh, yes.
In our movies of 1939. Billy Burke is Glinda the Good Witch of the North.
She's great. I don't have a lot to say about her, but there was I feel like there was one film that she had been in that I was going to bring up, but I can't remember now.
Father of the Bride?
That's what it was. Yeah, she was in Father of the Bride.
Yes,
that kind of surprised me. I was like, oh, yeah.
Good talk. Margaret Hamilton as Almira Gulch and the Wicked Witch of the West.
I think that she is just one of those people who just really tapped into finding the way to play just a great iconic villain, and I'm sure partnering with the right director and everything. But it's funny listening to Margaret talk about getting offered this part. It's very funny because she's a very, very funny lady, and she had been in love with Wizard of Oz from the time she was a child, first reading them from like the time she was 4, and when they called to offer the part, her agent who called her said, and she's like, oh, well, what part? And they're like, oh, it's the witch. And she's like, the witch? And her agent's like, well, what else? She's just like, oh. But she's very, very funny because she's like, well, I guess with this nose, what else are they going to offer me? So
that's awesome.
That's
really funny because I think had we been watching movies contemporary of this film, I think it would have been really entertaining to see her in that character. I think that would have been one of those terrific moments of seeing an actor out of character. In such a kind of dramatic way. Her makeup was also incredibly toxic. She swallowed some of the green and had to live on liquids for days. Her face was dyed green for weeks and weeks due to the unusually high quantities of copper that they rubbed upon her skin.
And it set on fire also when she was it was, I believe, when they were they had stage elevators, and when she appears and disappears in Munchkinland toward the early part in Oz, when the stage drops out from under her, the first time they did it, the stage dropped so fast that she just plummeted down below, and really almost got hurt. And then so they tried it a second time, and when the stage went down, it didn't work right. And when the fireball went off, it caught her face on fire, and it caught the copper on fire, and the copper just kept burning. And so luckily somebody was really smart and actually had to grab her and pull her off and wipe off all the makeup, so that, because they're like, the copper is just going to keep burning, and it'll just kind of keep burning into your skin. So luckily.
That's an awful story.
I know, it's terrible.
Just horrible.
Yeah, there's a lot of injuries making this in early special effects while people are still trying to sort things out. Yeah. Sometimes it didn't go so well.
Yeah, good warning. How about Clara Blandick? A brief performance by Clara Blandick as Aunt Em.
It's one of those characters, one of those people that I don't know elsewhere, but she's a very busy woman, and it just seems to me like this is one of those things where it's just like kind of an iconic role that she was in that I'll always think of her as Aunt Em, even though she started acting in 1911 and acted all the way into the 50s. So, I mean, she's been around a lot. I think it's interesting that she and Uncle Henry,
Charlie
Grapewin, were both characters that were left to be only in the real world. They didn't have counterparts in Oz. And my interpretation of that is they needed somebody who could kind of represent home and represent that return that Dorothy was after. Because if they were kind of in Oz, I feel like Dorothy would go, oh, well, it's kind of like Aunt Em and Uncle Henry are here. I'll just stay here. By having them not here, I think that really helps. Yeah,
because Oz kicks butt. Like, everything's in color.
Well, I know.
You get fancy shoes.
It's like, why go back? It's
why
so
go
much
back
fun
if
here.
you have everybody here? Yeah, all your favorite people are animals and Tin Man and Scarecrow. Why not stick around? No, I totally agree with you. You've got to have something to want to go back to, and that completes the hero's journey, right? You have to be able to come back a changed person after you drink the elixir, and so I think it actually works really well.
Yeah.
Pat Walsh is Nico.
Yeah, I guess the Winged Monkey King. I mean, I don't have a lot to say about Pat Walsh other than I guess at the time, Pat Walsh was kind of popular for portraying animals. And what a weird little thing to be known for.
He's Andy Serkis. Andy, Pat Walsh is the Andy Serkis of the 1930s. He's the guy who plays animals. Andy Serkis is the guy who plays computer animals.
That's awesome.
Right?
That's a great comparison. I love it.
Thank you, sir. And actually, what you don't know is Toto was played by Andy Serkis. Sorry, I couldn't pull it off. Toto was played by Terry, who's a girl. So this was actually the Danish girl is actually an homage to Wizard of Oz. I'm just full of it.
You are just This is. Toto's the first transgender character.
The first transgender character, exactly,
cinema.
was 1939. So it's unfortunate they got that little bit of history wrong. Terry the dog played Toto. It was in 18 other films, including our least favorite film, The Women.
Yeah, right at the beginning of The Women, there were those dogs, and one of them is Toto. AKA Terry.
Poor Terry broke her foot in this film, just like Harrison Ford did in Star Wars. Another great parallel.
A monkey stepped on her. No, it was a Winky. One of the Winkies. Yeah. Terry the dog made more than 500 pounds a week, which was actually more than the Munchkins made. They were paid 500 pounds a week was tops for the top Munchkins. So Terry the dog pulled in bank. Why are you telling us that in pounds? I'm curious.
I don't actually know that why I'm putting it in pounds. I should. What is that in? Why?
Good to
because
know.
The research that I did was it was a resource written by an Englishman, and so what is 500 pounds? Pounds in dollars. What is that? That would be $723.55. $723.55 in a week.
Wow.
For Terry the dog.
That's pretty good.
That is funny. I didn't even make a connection that I was speaking in pounds. This is, of course, this is not that's ridiculous that I would do that.
So if it was $725, that's about $12,000 a week in today's dollars.
Wow.
Just so you have a sense.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
Terry,
crazy.
That is crazy. All right. So who else do we need to talk about before we get to the Munchkins?
I love
the Munchkins.
I do too, man. I was only going to bring up Adriana Caselotti, who really isn't in the film, but it's so strange that she actually pops up in here because a big reason that this film got made was because of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. When that film was such a success and people said, hey, this film can actually work. You can tell a story that kind of is enjoyed by adults and kids. That kind of pushed people to make this movie. And Adriana Caselotti, of course, is the voice of Snow White in that film. And here she pops up as that mystery voice that sings when the Tin Man is singing his song about If I Only Had a Heart. And you hear, wherefore art you, Romeo? Or wherefore art thou, Romeo? And that is her.
That's really funny. What a small part.
I know. It's just such a strange little moment to kind of throw in there.
Okay, enough about music. Let's talk about the Munchkins.
Let's do it.
Oh, my goodness, the stories out of the Munchkin land. Okay. So the Munchkins, do you know about the Singer Midgets, Andy?
Well, I know that they're credited as the Singer Midgets.
So the Singer Midgets. The Singer Midgets are, they were actually a group of, it started with 20 little people managed by Leo Singer. They could not sing. That was not actually their job, but they toured as this vaudeville act between the late 1910s, 1915 or so, and the mid-1940s. They also had a midget, or 3 midget elephants that they called it, and 20 ponies that were part of this show, the Lilliputstad. The Singer Midgets. That's how they traveled around. And as it happened, it was Leo Singer who was brought in to coordinate and to recruit the Munchkins. So he ends up finding more than 120 little people to join the cast, and they put them all in the Culver Hotel. And I'm sure they paid in pounds, and maybe that's where I got this.
There you go.
But the stories that come out of this, who knows? But it turns out that they apparently turned the Culver City Hotel into a crazed, drunken dwarf love-in, they call it. Unholy, this is a quote, an unholy assembly of pimps, hookers, and gamblers. Mervyn LeRoy recalled, they had orgies in the hotel and we had to have police on every floor. Though he says later, to make a picture like the Wizard of Oz, everybody had to be a little drunk with imagination. I'm sure that's what the Munchkins were thinking. Judy Garland apparently went on a date with one, but her mom had to go because she was only 17 at the time. And then the one that she went on a date with says, fair enough, 2 broads for the price of 1. Oh, my goodness.
I've heard that there's a lot of stories, and I've heard a lot of them are just kind of rumors and myth, and it's kind of turned into this whole thing.
I know, but better that, Andy. Can you imagine it?
Oh, yes. I think it's very interesting. And I mean, they made that movie Under the Rainbow kind of loosely taken from that, all those stories. And I've never seen that movie.
I haven't seen it.
IMDb says a visiting dignitary, a CIA agent, a Nazi spy, Japanese tourist, an assassin, and a group of midget actors from The Wizard of Oz all check into an elite Los Angeles hotel called Under the Rainbow.
That's funny because it really sounds like the assassin, yes. CIA agent, clearly the Tin Man. You see where I'm going?
Oh, yeah. That was Chevy Chase and Carrie Fisher in that one.
Yeah. Anyhow, so I find those rumors hysterical. I can totally see it. If I were one of the Singer Midgets, I would have probably gone down that road myself. You never know what you're driven to, but these characters were hysterically awesome. They did such justice to Oz and to when her arrival in Oz, I think, is made so special because so many of these characters were on set at the time. I think it was just wonderful.
Well, it's a great way to really define a new world, right? She lands in Munchkin Land, and she's surrounded by little people. I mean, it really spells weaves a really magical spell for a child. I mean, she walks out the door and everything is color, and then second, everybody around her, they're all grown-ups, but they're all short. It's a very interesting way to kind of kick off this trip. Jerry Maren, who is the Lollipop Guild Munchkin, the one in the green shirt, he is the last surviving Munchkin. And I think he became the last surviving member when Ruth Duccini passed away on January 16th, 2014. So, he's still out there kicking. I think he recently has had a spell of some illnesses. So, it's he's been around for a long time. Hopefully he'll hold out a little longer. But, I mean, he was born in 1920. He's 96. So
I wonder if we can get him on the show.
I know, we should try.
We should try and get Jerry Maren on the show. That would be great.
Be interesting, yeah. Margaret Pellegrini was Sleepyhead and Flowerpot Munchkin. She actually lived here in Phoenix, and my wife at the time, she would notarize stuff. And actually, Margaret Pellegrini came in and needed something notarized, so my wife got to meet her when she popped in to get some papers done.
She's still your wife, right?
She is still my wife. Yes.
You said my wife at the time as if your wife now is different.
Oh, no, yes. No, my wife is still the same.
Eight shoots and leaves, Andy. It's all about the commas.
You're right. I know. And it was the wrong place.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Margaret Pellegrini passed away in 2013 here in Arizona.
Oh, sad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
The music is obviously a big part of this show.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, Arthur Freed kind of put this team together, pulled these guys from Broadway, I believe, Harberg and Arlen. And at the time, it was kind of rare still for musicals to have songs that actually carried the story. And if you look at anything like some of these movies, I'm blanking on, like, what was the one they'd always have the year, like Broadway Melody of 1929.
Mm-hmm.
Movies like that. It was really, they'd have these songs that just kind of popped in, and it was almost like watching a show, and it really called them showstoppers because they'd stop the show and you'd have this big musical number.
Yeah,
and that's really what they
like
were.
Singing in the Rain, like it was later, but it's that kind of a vibe.
Yeah, right, where it doesn't really...
They were not part of the plot.
Right, exactly. And here you get these songs that actually kind of tell part of the story. And I think that was real rare, and I think people really connected with it. And of course, the movie kicks off with Over the Rainbow, which was voted the #1 song of the century, which I think is a fair assessment. I think it's a pretty solid song. I'm assuming that's like a film song. It's not like competing against the Stones or the Beatles or things like that.
I would hope not.
That
seems a little bit subjective.
Right. I think it's a
like
#1 song.
Who is it that voted this #1 song? Like, who is voting? I didn't vote.
It was Jerry Maren, actually.
That was it?
No.
He's the only one who got to vote.
Yeah, he picked. He's the last Munchkin. He gets to pick.
He gets to pick. That's what they said in 1939. The last Munchkin gets to pick. They told me I would have this honor.
But yeah, the song actually almost was cut, which I think is crazy because it is such a core song for this film. And it's just in our zeitgeist, the whole concept of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. But at the time, MGM really felt, we can't have one of our stars singing a song in a barnyard. And they just felt it was so inappropriate that they just really almost just cut it outright. They just didn't think it was going to work. And luckily, wiser heads prevailed. They kept it in.
Truly.
And it really did become Judy Garland's signature song. She would sing it at every show that she would do. It was always the one that was connected to her.
As we were watching this, my daughter says, because there's a sequence where she's somewhere over there, and she leans back against a hay bale. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
My daughter says, God, it'd be creepy if like two hands came out of the hay bale and grabbed her face and pulled her into it. And I thought, God, she's so my daughter.
That is
so
funny.
So grim.
Oh, it's too funny.
Yeah. So think about that next time you watch the movie.
I will.
Yeah.
I will. That's...
best line in any song in the film, certainly, but I could show my prowess, be a lion, not a mouse, if I only had the nerve. Best, most egregious example of rhyme that I think I have yet heard to this day.
I love the wordplay that these guys do. I mean, that sort of stuff. I mean, that's just
vaudeville
absurd
right
fun.
there. That is vaudeville. Yeah.
And it's perfect coming out of Bert Lahr because he just gives it that vibe. And as much as the song still kind of grates on my nerves is the If I Were King of the Forest song. Yeah. But at the same time, it's just so funny because it is so over the top. But, the way he has that just completely fake vibrato, the forest, whatever he's doing there, I don't even know how he does that. But yeah, I mean, I do love the wordplay. Like, we hear he is a whiz of a whiz, if ever a whiz there was. Mm-hmm. If ever a whiz there was, the Wizard of Oz is one because. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's such crazy and simple and almost childlike wordplay. But it just, I don't know. It's like these songs are ingrained in your brain. Right.
It's ticklish. It's like mentally ticklish. That's why you like it so much. I mean, that's certainly why we connect with it as kids and adults. It's fantastic. It's fun to say.
Mentally ticklish.
Yes.
I love that.
That's a thing.
It's my favorite thing now. I need more mentally ticklish projects in my life.
You need to be tickled.
Mentally.
That's
else? Awesome. Herbert Stothart score. This is an interesting one because this was that period in time where there wasn't really a film score, so to speak. A score was really pulling a lot of different types of music. And here you can hear The Happy Farmer, you can hear Night on Bald Mountain. That's kind of the way, the direction that people were going at the time. And it's very strange. The weirdest thing for me is that I think when it comes time to the Oscars, he wins an Oscar for Best Original Score. And I don't get that because there was also that score. What was the one we were talking about last time was it for Stagecoach, where it was like best, I can't remember, but it struck me as kind of strange that he would get Best Original Score when it seems like it wasn't really original because he's kind of pulling all these other things out, but whatever.
Right. His credits are fantastic because, obviously his music is in just a lot of stuff. He died in 1949, but he is credited up until, 2012 with Wreck-It Ralph even. Because his songs are out there, and it's funny when you listen to some of his music, Donkey Serenade. You listen to I Want to Be Loved by You. I mean, these are things that he is responsible for that we're still hearing. I think that's fantastic.
Well, and I mean, geez, that holds true for the other guys too. For Harold Arlen and Yip Harberg, you look at their credits for the stuff that they did, and it's like, geez, It's Only a Paper Moon, Down with Love, Lydia the Tattooed Lady. I mean, just their work is just kind of core to that type of song that is just kind of so ingrained,
absolutely,
in our world.
I know you want to talk about Adrian.
It's Adrian did the costumes for the women. We already talked about that and mentioned it here. Also did the costumes here, and I gotta say, these there's something really brilliant about the color choices and doing just such strong Technicolor costumes that work so well in this land. And you go just see the variations of the Munchkin costumes and what they did with the Lion, Scarecrow, and Tin Man, and the Wizard, and everybody in Emerald City, and the Wicked Witch, and just everybody. Their costumes are just done so well. It really is just an incredible job. And of course, there's the great ruby slippers that he did that have become so famous. And, there's actually a documentary out, right? I think it just played at South by Southwest called The Slippers. That is really all about the unbelievable world of the ruby slippers and how I think there were six? I think there were 6 pairs of ruby slippers that were made for the film that she would wear at different times. And this documentary is really, I'll just read this blurb from IMDb. The Slippers pulls back the wizard's curtain on the unbelievable story and cultural impact of Dorothy's ruby slippers from The Wizard of Oz. Through first-hand accounts and archival interviews, The Slippers will detail the life of the ruby slippers after their sale at the famed 1970 MGM auction. Discovered by costumer Kent Warner, it is unclear how many pairs were found and how many pairs exist. That mystery has only helped to propel the shoes to the forefront of the Hollywood memorabilia market. They have been bought, stolen, and coveted by many. They are considered the most important piece of Hollywood memorabilia and the catalyst for the creation of Hollywood memorabilia collecting. It's just crazy. I mean, These things are just a core to that type of iconic thing that people see as memorabilia.
Yeah.
I mean, you think of like memorabilia from Hollywood, and ruby slippers just kind of pops into
at the top.
Have you ever seen a pair of the ruby slippers?
No, have you?
I feel like I did. There was a tour that came through the museum here of like great Hollywood costumes and stuff, and I feel like there were slippers there, and that could just be my brain playing tricks on me because I feel like I should have seen them. But I don't know. I feel like
it feels like it should have been appropriate, therefore it was.
That's right. Exactly.
Production coming in once again, the heavyweight with 1,057 credits, Cedric Gibbons.
Yes.
Production design. What was the story about him again? For those who didn't hear our last film. Yeah,
he had a contract with MGM where he would get a credit on every film that rolled through, whether he worked on it or not. So that's why he's got 1,500 some credits listed. But really, he only worked on about 150 or so.
And this, do we know if this was one of them?
This, I believe, was one. He was nominated for an Oscar for this, and I did hear his name brought up a number of times in special features and stuff. So,
all right. Well, then he deserves a lot of credit.
Yes.
This was beautiful. Cedric Gibbons with William Horning.
Mm-hmm. And then Malcolm Brown and Jack Martin Smith, I believe, spent some time in here. I love the sets. Again, just like Adrian and what he brought, Adrian, I think that Cedric brought a lot here, and beautiful sets, beautiful colors. I love just the look of it. They did a great job here blending real sets and matte paintings and painted walls, like when Dorothy is leaving Munchkinland and she's dancing along the yellow brick road, and she's really dancing up to a wall. And if you look, you can kind of tell that there's a point on the yellow brick road where it suddenly doesn't. It's not the actual road anymore, but it's a painting going up the wall. Mm-hmm. But I think they do a really good job, and I there's something really effective about this type of cinema work that I really enjoy still.
I do too. I think it's really touching. And you look at some of the big works of William Horning. I mean, this is the guy behind North by Northwest and Ben-Hur and Gigi and Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. And I mean, I've seen many more of Horning's films. Well, certainly than Cedric's, but many more of them that strike me as sort of iconically expert in this kind of work and really displaying this world and the world of these sets in a way that is sort of magically, impossibly perfect.
Yeah.
The Emerald Palace interior, largest set at the time.
Yeah, this. It was a huge set that they built for the inside of Emerald City. It's a pretty magnificent set. I mean, this is when they have the horse of a different color rolling them through in the carriage. They have them all getting fixed and stuffed and cleaned and all that sort of stuff. All that's happening. That's a pretty impressive set. And I mean, you can almost kind of tell that it's just a big set because they didn't. It's green. They just kind of painted all green. But I still think it works nicely.
The horses were covered in flavored jelly powder.
Right.
Apparently, all of the horse sequences had to be filmed really, really fast because they kept licking it off of each other. That would have been awesome. Oh, that's a head slapper. Why did we not think of that?
That is so funny.
Anyhow,
they should have done the Tin Man in that.
Exactly,
in silver
flavored jelly powder. Oh.
And the witch, painter in lime. Oh man,
they should have invited us on this set.
See, we got to all figure it out.
Why was there the birds bug me?
Do they bug you?
Why is there a toucan in Oz? There's no toucans in Oz.
There's no toucan in Oz.
There's no toucans in Oz.
And there's it looks like a secretary bird walking around the little the Tin Woodman's the pre-Tin Woodman's, back when he was just a woodman. Of his house. There's like a secretary bird kind of poking around back there. Yeah, they were trying to find a way to make these sets look a little more, feel more like they were actually outside. So they borrowed a bunch of birds from the, from the LA Zoo, and just kind of had them walking around on the set to give it a feel. But it's interesting because this film looked so bad for so many years because people were watching old copies and just the TV versions and everything, that it's these birds that actually are what people saw hanging, or they saw in the tree. And that's what actually started the rumor of that, there was this munchkin who had hung himself on the set. And if you're watching, you can see the body kind of hanging in the tree and kind of blowing in the wind sort of thing. And it was actually one of these birds. And you never really could tell because the copies looked so bad until they did this amazing restoration.
Which
in the
is
last
beautiful.
decade or so. Oh, it's just an unreal restoration. It really is. But, and now it's like so clear that these are just some random birds wandering around on set. It's just so funny. I'm waiting for the cleaned up, restored version of Three Men and a Baby to see what was behind the curtain.
What's behind the curtain? This thing was edited by Blanche Sewell. What do we have to thank her for?
Just a lot of great stuff. I don't know. I'm curious about the story of Blanche Sewell and how much at the time editors, what control they had over storytelling, or were they really just kind of button pushers? I'm not quite sure of the story of Blanche, but I know that, she was involved in the almost cutting over the rainbow or keeping it. And I'm not sure which side she fell on that. But also there was this musical number that was put in at a point called the Jitterbug, and you may recall a line that the witch says when the monkeys are getting ready to head out to go catch the Dorothy and her friends, and the witch says, "Don't worry, I've sent a little insect ahead to help slow them down," or something like that. And that's what she's talking about, is this little Jitterbug that, I don't know, I guess the whole point of it would bite you, and then it would make you
dance.
It would make you dance. Did you watch the Jitterbug, the scene?
No, I didn't. I read about it.
It's pretty terrible. It's I don't know. It's the Jitterbug, and it's just this silly scene that it just didn't work at all. It was shot from kind of a home movie camera, so you don't even see how it really was supposed to look. But the musical number, I think, was weak. I think I'd like to say that that's part of the reason why they cut it. But what I heard, they cut it because they felt the Jitterbug tied too closely to the modern dance, the Jitterbug, and they felt that it would date the film.
Yep. Well, that was a good choice.
I agree.
Good call. Cinematography by Harold Rosson.
Yeah, we like him.
Sure
he
do.
He does good stuff here. I think there's some great camera moves. There's a lot of amazing Technicolor work, and considering that the Technicolor cameras were like 500 pounds or something nutty like that, I mean, this film, when she lands in Munchkinland, there's this amazing crane shot that starts when she walks out of the house, and there's a cutaway to her reaction shot, but then it goes back to this shot as she kind of walks out of the house into the streets of Munchkinland, and the camera pulls. It just kind of goes up and floats through the trees, over the brook, and kind of comes over to the Yellow Brick Road area, and kind of turns back to Dorothy. And it's just, this is an amazing, beautiful move that just kind of gives us this sense of this world that we're in, because you don't get shots like that in Kansas, and it's just a great way to kick this part of the film off.
It's like the equivalent of an IMAX camera, right? I mean, today, right? Those cameras were gigantic.
They were just huge. They were just enormous beasts to trundle around with. I mean, it was a 3-strip Technicolor. You had three reels filming at the same time.
Right.
Oy, I can't even imagine.
Well, you shot your first film on one, right?
Oh yeah, that's all I use.
Can we talk just a little bit about the effects?
Yes. We should talk about
especially the tornado.
I mean, all the effects are impressive, but every time I watch the tornado, I'm really just kind of blown away by how awesome it still looks.
Yes. How did that? I mean, so technically, what I understand, and I tried to find something on this. Did you watch any video? Did they have any behind the scenes of how they did that?
They talk about how they did that. The behind the scenes that they have is just kind of showing the actual raw footage of it. And so it actually starts off just not moving at all and goes to a point where it's moving and spinning and kind of destroying things.
That's what I saw. And what I understand is they had a wire frame and they wrapped it with pantyhose, and then they put it underneath a long set that was large in the distance, and they tied the bottom of it, of the funnel cloud, to a car that they then drove back and forth on a line just across the set. And so that's what made it kind of move and bend as they had it spinning from the top. I have a hard time picturing how that works, and I haven't actually seen it, but apparently they did that all on a giant soundstage.
Yeah, I had a hard time figuring it out too, because the way they were talking about it when I was listening to them was there's something about how it was like in, I don't know, the bottom of it was in something that when it would go, it would spit up all the dust and everything to make it look like the stuff on the ground. And I don't know. All I know is I'm just blown away by that stinking thing every time I see it. And not just the tornado, but really, I mean, everything involving the tornado, that scene, just what as she's running up to the house and you see the tornado in the background and she opens the door and the door just flies off into the air.
Yes.
It's, it's just like great stuff like that just works so well to give you this real sense of this danger that she's in.
Yeah. Crazy. And then it goes into a screened, projected kind of, as our house is flying, we get projections of funny things kind of flying by the house. But, and we kind of figured that out. But the stuff that's really noteworthy is figuring out how they do that tornado, how they do some of those movement effects at that point. I think was really great. Glinda, Glinda in her bubble, I think is a cool example of that. Just using sort of double exposure and the witch melting through the floor, putting a giant hat on her so it looks like her head is shrinking. I think that ends up being really cool. What were some of your favorites?
Well, you mentioned Glinda's bubble. I think that what's so interesting about that is they, in order to make it look like that bubble is kind of coming down and landing, they actually basically moved the camera to this bubble on set that they just were holding still, and they had this track so that they could move it the way that they wanted to have it go when she was arriving. And I think that's such an interesting way to do that, where you have to kind of pre-plan exactly how you want the bubble to go, so you can kind of plan your camera move, and then of course do a double exposure so that it actually ends up in the right spot. I don't know, it just kind of boggles the mind a bit, just kind of some of the planning that Buddy Gillespie and his team were putting together with these things. And the skywriting also, when the Wicked Witch is writing Surrender Dorothy in the Sky, that's all done with like a little tiny ink thing in liquid. And they would kind of just they would stick the tip of this thing in liquid and just kind of write the words. And it would, I don't know what sort of liquid it was that would kind of hold it in place, but it would kind of keep the words there. Just really fascinating. I love that, I mean, and effects, the thing about effects is they're always trying things new. Even today, they're always trying to go, what can we do to kind of, push the boundaries a little bit and do something new that people haven't seen. Mm-hmm. Back then, I love that they're doing that also. I mean, even just things like the footlock that they have for Tin Man when he's dancing and he does that lean where he's kind of going left and then goes right. I mean, I don't know if the footlock was something that they had been doing a lot before this, but I don't know. They're still doing it in things recently. Even, the thing that pops into my head when I see that is Michael Jackson's Moonwalk. Was it Moonwalker?
Yeah, Moonwalker. That's right.
Yeah, in Smooth Criminal when he does that lean, and it's just it's a cool move, and it's just it's something that's been around forever. Pretty cool stuff.
So we've already talked a little bit about the restoration, which is beautiful, and especially since we're coming off of Stagecoach last week, where the restoration is just generally terrible.
This is one where it's just this is really, it's the film that's been seen by more people than any other film, is from what I've read, like over 1 billion people. This film is clearly well loved, and MGM and all the different people who have kind of had control over it have done a really good job of keeping tabs on as many elements as they could. And when they did the restoration with all the 3-strip Technicolor, they were really able to figure out, interestingly, as they go through the different strips, the 3 different colors, if there's something that's amiss in one of them, they can pretty clearly determine, hey, that's obviously dirt. It's not something that's in the others. And they were able to find a better way to map what should come out and what shouldn't. And boy, it looks like it was just shot yesterday. This film is just stunning to look at.
It is beautiful. It's impossible to believe, really, that it's been, 80 years almost.
Yeah,
crazy.
It really is. Yeah.
How to do in terms of awards? Fairly well, I gather.
Fairly well. It was nominated for Best Picture. Of course, it did lose to Gone with the Wind, directed by Victor Fleming also. So, no matter what, he ended up having a good year.
Came off well.
Yeah, he did not get nominated for Best Director for this film, but he did win for Gone with the Wind. This film, like I said, did win Best Original Score for Herbert Stothart. Again, why original score? I don't quite know, but that's what he won for. Best Song, Over the Rainbow, by Harberg and Arlen, which I think is a pretty fair thing to say. Judy Garland got a special Academy Award. It was the Academy Juvenile Award for Best Performance by a Juvenile. She got it for this and Babes in Arms, which she did this year also. She was busy. She did like 7 films in 2 years right around now. I don't know how they... Oh, well, I
Crazy.
do sadly know how they kept these kids working so
they were
hard.
all high.
Yeah. It was nominated for Best Art Direction, Cedric Gibbons and William Horning. It did lose to Gone with the Wind. Best Cinematography, Best Color Cinematography, I should specify, by Harold Rosson. This also lost to Gone with the Wind. Honestly, watching these two films, I think I would go with this over Gone with the Wind now.
Well, especially now. I mean,
Yeah.
Gone with the Wind, just as much as Gone with the Wind is a beautiful picture, but we have so many more problems with it than.
But even just cinematography, I think that the transition from kind of that sepia toned black and white to the color, I mean, this color in this film is just so vibrant, and it just speaks so strongly to just kind of imagination. I feel like
I agree with you.
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot to that. Best special effects, it was nominated for that. Arnold, Buddy Gillespie, and Douglas Shearer. That lost to The Rains Came, and I don't know anything about that movie. I'm going to try to see if I can watch it before our series ends so I can speak something to that. I'm curious, because honestly, the special effects in this, to me, stand out as what should have won.
Yeah, I haven't seen or heard of The Rains Came either. That's one I don't know anything about.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about this film as something more than just a kid's film. Is it a political film to you?
It's not. I think there's so many things. I mean, there was a thing that came out in the 60s, I think, some political reading into this film about different, about how the ruby slippers, or actually, it's just like, was it the Yellow Brick Road represented like the gold standard at the time, and I don't know, all sorts of nonsensical sorts of things. There was religious readings into the film. Religious groups certainly had problems with this film. There were feminist views of the film. There was, drug readings of this film. There's so many ways you could read this film. And I think that a good film, can end up having a lot of those, but still can stand strong beyond all of that. I don't think any of that stuff really holds much credence.
I thought we were supposed to watch this, but turn the volume down and listen to The Wall. And that would be the quintessential experience for The Wizard of Oz.
Have you ever tried that?
No, of course not.
I did try a little bit of that. You can actually find it on Vimeo. We'll post the link, Dark Side of the Rainbow.
Yeah.
Of course, they all just completely deny. I think one of them, I don't know if it's Roger Waters or one of them, still kind of says, oh yeah. But I think all the rest of it, it's just nonsense.
Well, that leads us into our remakes and other takes segment. Did this, what, there are a number of spin-offs. We've talked about one of them, the most recent, Oz the Great and Powerful, on this show, on a film board some time ago. Didn't hold up very well.
No, I didn't like that at all.
No, not really at all. But there were still some other good, other versions of it.
Yeah, and it's funny, L. Frank Baum actually started making versions of this. I mean, he ended up moving to Hollywood before Hollywood kind of became a thing. And in the silent era, he actually tried his hand at making some adaptations of his books to the screen. And, it was one of those weird things where people wanted to go watch things at the movie theater where they didn't feel they had to bring the kids. They wanted to be able to feel like it was for grown-ups. And so his stuff didn't ever find an audience. And it wasn't until really Snow White and Seven Dwarfs that kind of burst that broke through that dam. I don't know what metaphor I'm going for here, but that helped his stories find a cinematic audience finally. But yeah, I mean, geez, The Wiz, that was stage version and movie version, and then what was it recently? One of those live broadcast events. Return to Oz, Disney tried their hand at that. There was an animated Legends of Oz. The Muppets have done versions. There have been comic book versions. There was a comic book that I loved as a kid called it was Captain Carrot, which is very silly comic book superhero, but Captain Carrot and the Amazing Zoo Crew, and they went and fought the Oz Wonderland War, which was kind of a fun little thing. But it's
don't forget all the video games. There's a ton of video games back from the Nintendo DS, Super Nintendo. You can get the Oz games. There's you can go to Oz in the latest Lego.
Yeah, Lego Dimensions. I was just playing that level with my son earlier today.
Were you really?
Yes, I was.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Beyond the Yellow Brick Road. Yeah, there's a lot of it.
And then, of course, have you looked at that wackadoodle alphabetical version of it?
Oh, it's gives me seizures.
I don't know what it is about that, but it mesmerizes me. And I don't necessarily watch it, but I can like turn it on and then just have it play while I go do other things.
Describe what it is.
Some loon decided, hey, you know, it'd be really interesting. What if I took The Wizard of Oz and I re-edited it word by word and put the whole thing in alphabetical order? And you start with the credits, and all the credits are in alphabetical order for each page. And then as you go along, Matt Busey is the guy's name. You can see it on his Vimeo page. We'll put a link up there. But yeah, it starts with the first word, A, and it goes all the way through the alphabet to, I don't even know what the last word is. I didn't look, but it just goes through the whole thing. And it's so weird, but it's kind of mesmerizing, and it's funny how certain things all of a sudden hit. And the one that always sticks in my mind is when they're saying but, and they go but, and then it ends with but buttons.
I don't know. For me, it's I, all the screaming.
Oh, right.
It's all the I.
Oh, it's funny. It is funny.
It is actually really funny, and I'm surprised how well it does kind of work alphabetically.
Yeah, it's weird.
How about Oz as a gay icon?
Yeah, this film has always kind of stood out as a gay icon for the gay community. I think John Waters was interviewed about it, and he talks about how it's just it's this magical land. It's this place where these people you see the three farmhands, and then in Oz is where they're able to kind of open up and really be themselves. And I think there's a lot of ways that the gay community started seeing this film. And aside from the fact that the gay community looks at Judy Garland as quite an icon, and I think just all these things have come together to create this sense about this movie that just I think that is just something that they can really hold close.
Well, it is a terrific film. We did enjoy it, but how did it do at the box office?
Interestingly, this film did not do that well when it opened. It actually lost money, and I think that's really interesting to note that it just wasn't something that it did well enough, but it because of the amount of money they spent on print and advertising, it ended up losing out. And of course, thank you, Eddie Mannix, for bringing all that to light. I love all this factual information that people pull from his ledger for budgets for all this sort of stuff.
Right.
Now, that being said, this film ended up being one of those films that had a new life. I think in 1949, it was re-released. And then it kind of subsequently ended up having a number of re-releases, and people kept going to this movie and kept going and kept going and kept going. This movie just had a life beyond anything that people kind of expected. And this film was one of those first films that ended up on TV, and it got broadcast on TV every single year. I mean, that's where I first saw it. Was I don't know. I can't remember if it was around Christmas or Thanksgiving, but every year it was always on TV. And that was kind of one of those core things. It was like The Wizard of Oz and The Sound of Music and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer were like the three things that were core that we had to watch every year. And and so this film ended up making a lot of money. This film at the time cost almost $2.8 million to make. That's about $46.5 million in today's dollars. It ended up over time making about $33.7 million, which is about $565 million in adjusted dollars, plus some international money that it brought in. So all told, this film ended up making over time about an adjusted $5 million adjusted profit per finished minute. That puts it at number 11 on our list. So amazing for a film that lost money when it was initially released. Over time, it's ended up creeping its way up to become one of the most popular.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Eddie Mannix knew.
Did we talk about the 1925 and the 1933 Wizard of Oz in our sequels discussion?
Well, I did mention that Baum had done some previous versions. I don't know if he was involved in those particular ones, but people were trying to find a way to tell this story. It's just it took a long time, and like I said, I think it really was finding the right way through Snow White to approach it.
I just can't. It was only when I looked at them in order that 1925, 1933. That's not very far apart from 1939. Like that's a timeline that you can see people throwing that particular spaghetti at that particular wall over time to see if they can make it work. And it's sort of surprising in that light that they kept trying to get through over that hump, even in 1939, that they hadn't given up on it. It's
like Fantastic Four. If we keep throwing money at it, one of these days we'll get it right. We just haven't come to the 1939 version yet of the Fantastic Four.
But it's
coming, Pete.
That's exactly, it's the Spider-Man conundrum too, right? It's this whole idea of sunk cost bias. We've spent so much money trying to make it right. How could we possibly stop spending money?
Yes. Yeah, right.
Andy, I think it's probably time we should rank it.
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel and sign in to your account, because by now you have one, and I want you to just search for The Wizard of Oz. And what you're going to see is a little thing. It's going to say add to my Flickchart, and you're going to say yes. And then the first movie that comes up, if you're ranking like we are, Filmo a Filmo, is The Wizard of Oz versus Q Andy.
First up, this is, we talked about last week, Stagecoach was going to be our new, the block.
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz or Stagecoach?
Wizard of Oz.
Absolutely. I mean, the movies from 1939 so far, this and Mr. Smith are really the two that stand out for me.
That's right.
Wizard of Oz or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Pete?
Well, Eternal Sunshine for me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm dwelling on that one for a minute. I think in the long run, boy, it really is just Eternal Sunshine straight up that easy for you?
Yeah, it is. And in my own flick chart, I'll tell you, Wizard of Oz is, it's not a top 10 movie. It's a top 100 movie. I mean, it's certainly I think it's in my top 50. So, but there are definitely movies that if I had them side by side, Filmo a Filmo, I would do 53. My personal is 53. So there are movies that I would put on first, and Eternal Sunshine is one of them.
Yeah, it's so tricky. I mean, I think I'm going to go with Eternal Sunshine.
I'm surprised this was hard for you. I think Eternal Sunshine, that's one of your very favorites.
No,
right?
It is, but it's just, The Wizard of Oz, the place that it has, like, in my heart, I guess. It's just one of those films where I feel like there's something about that film that will last for eternity for me. And I'm just dwelling on that. Like, is Eternal Sunshine going to have that? But in the end, I mean, yes, I think you're right. Eternal Sunshine, I probably would say is a stronger story. There's a lot of stuff going on there. So I'm going to do Eternal Sunshine. Boy, that really was hard for me, though.
I'm glad you worked through it. You did great.
Thanks, man. These are good counseling sessions for me. The Wizard of Oz or Sunshine, little Danny Boyle space action.
I'll give you Wizard of Oz on this one.
Yeah, this is the Wizard of Oz for me. The Wizard of Oz or what is it going to be? The Wizard of Oz or About a Boy?
Wizard of Oz.
Boy.
Really?
Yeah, I love About a Boy. I mean, that to me is like just such a perfect kind of that kind of romantic comedy, just character relationship sort of film. I'm going to say Wizard of Oz, though. That's a tough one for me. I'm having a tough time with this one.
Traumatic.
It is. The Wizard of Oz are for a few dollars more. This was your favorite.
Yeah. I'm going to go a few dollars more.
Your favorite of the trilogy.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Wizard of Oz.
Really?
Yeah, if it was because mine was Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. If it was Good, Bad, and the Ugly, I would probably pick that one.
Oh, okay. So I should feel okay about this, about going to the mat on it.
Yeah, and I'm a little torn because I'm feeling like I may actually say for a few dollars more now. The more I think about it. I'm having a really traumatic time with this.
I love
today.
this.
Oh my goodness.
This is just delightful.
No, it's torture. I'm going to stick with Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
Whew, but yeah,
well, let's do it then. All right.
Okay.
One, two, three.
Paper.
1, 2, 3. Scissors.
Ooh.
1,
2, 3.
Paper.
Great minds. 1, 2, 3. Scissors.
Oh. One of us had to break.
Exactly. The Wizard of Oz or The Outlaw Josie Wales. I do Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, Wizard of Oz.
The Wizard of Oz or Sleepless in Seattle.
I have a hard time seeing this not scratching the same itch for you.
Yeah, it really does. This is tricky. I'm going to say Sleepless.
I don't care. I would do either one. You can have it. Okay. I don't care.
Wow. That's a first on this. I don't care. Oh, man. All right. Well,
is that not an appropriate answer if we're sitting down and all we have is 2 aged VHS tapes of Sleepless in Seattle and Wizard of Oz?
You have to make a choice.
And you tell me you have to pick it. I say I don't care. We're not going to watch a movie. Is that the deal?
You have to pick. It was a hard one. I picked for you.
Yeah, whatever you pick.
Yeah. Well, I obviously picked for you because otherwise we'd be going to the mat.
Over I don't care and
Exactly.
your choice.
It's crazy. All right. Well, hey, we're at number 62 on our list.
All right.
I
That's right.
think that's good. I feel like it could have been higher, but
Top 100 film.
Yeah, it is up there. This film is really up there.
All right. A top 100 film and a 2-hour conversation about it. What are you going to do?
I think it's clear that we love it.
I think it is clear that we love it and that it has a rightful place. It is a movie of innocence and wonder, and it is beautifully put together, beautifully restored, and it's just a treat to watch for the whole family. And I can say that without any drip of insincerity.
Absolutely.
What is your what does this do for your Letterboxd review? I imagine for you it's 3.5, 4 stars. I mean, it's a 5-star for me, but I know that this has been difficult for you. So
it has been difficult, but it's a 5-star. I mean, are you kidding? This is just like one of those films that just is burned into my brain. So this is a perma 5-star for me.
Perma 5-star.
Yeah, it'll never drop. This film it just is impossible for this film to ever drop stars. It's just this is a perfect example of what cinema can do.
All right, I'll take it. So where do we go from here in our 1939 series? What is next?
We are going to be chatting with a Professor Chips in Goodbye, Mr. Chips. I think this one, I don't know if have you seen this one before?
No.
I haven't either. I have the soundtrack to the version that Peter O'Toole was in, the musical version. Although I've never seen that version. I've never seen it. I've only heard the music. So I'm curious to see this story and kind of get a sense of why people are saying goodbye to this professor.
Poor Mr. Chips, but at least people are saying goodbye. He does not drift into anonymity.
Yes.
Before that, however, we are gathering with the Gang of Thugs for the first time in many, many moons. For some reason, we ended up doing an early in the month Film Board episode last month and a late in the month Film Board episode this month. Batman v Superman. We're doing that one this Saturday night, so be on the lookout. The gang doth gather to take on the latest bit of destruction. From
Little Dawn of Justice.
Dawn of Justice, that's right.
Have you seen the Jimmy Kimmel outtake of that?
Is it this is the Oscars, the Oscar post-show stuff where he was at the cocktail party?
Yeah.
You look just like Superman.
It's so funny.
We should put that in the show notes. That was actually a really funny until the end when it got ridiculous and they went to Mars. It was really funny.
Oh, but that worked perfectly for me because of
Matt Damon.
The only reason it works is because of him and Matt Damon.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Anyway, I thought it worked really well. I'm going to say it, Andy. I'm actually looking forward to this. I think I've said it before. I think a lot of people are hating on this movie and they don't know why yet. And I
think people are hating on it because of what Zack Snyder did with Man of Steel and just kind of the place that he took Superman to in that film.
Yes, and if you recall, I had that problem. And I think I was one of few that had that problem. But I feel like I stand sort of redeemed because that's a real problem, what he did with Superman in that film.
Yeah. For people who care about Superman, yes, I've never cared about Superman that much. And so, yeah, I guess that's why I don't care that much. But I love the Justice League. And so I guess that's why I am excited about this movie.
Yeah, me too. If you haven't listened to it, I should put a link of this in the show notes. The latest episode of Imaginary Worlds podcast is called Why They Fight. And it is, I can't remember. He does a couple of episodes. There's Why They Fight and Imagining Wonder Woman. Because we're seeing both of those. Those two episodes are terrific, and they actually do talk about the idea of taking Superman, the unbreakable hero, and making him somebody who breaks someone else's neck, and that ends up being a centerpiece of the violation of Zack Snyder's Superman. And so it should be interesting to see how this all comes together on screen. I can't wait to see it. I'm actually really looking forward to it, and especially talking about it with the boys.
Absolutely.
There you go. I think that's all we have to say, Andy. So for now, I've got to go to bed.
Very well. I'll bide my time. And as for you, my fine lady, it's true I can't attend to you here and now as I'd like, but just try to stay out of my way. Just try. I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.
Andy, there are not many people who dislike the film on Amazon, but there are some. And you will find a customer on June 8th of 2004 gave in this 1-star gem. What? Classic? Classic? This is one of the worst films ever made. I don't ever want to watch it again. The last time I watched part of it was in 3rd grade. Yuck. It's disgusting. Right down there with Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, License to Kill, and the special editions of the original Star Wars trilogy. Yuck. 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 If anyone says, hey, watch this film, schedule an immediate root canal. If anyone pays you to see it, jump into a live shark's mouth. If anyone holds a gun to your head and forces you to see it, pull the trigger.
Wow.
I try to go with the most understated of the reviews each week. I think you can see I succeeded with this one.
That is fantastic. Well, I have a 1-star also by Professor E. Loftus. It says, False Memory Syndrome and Toto, reviewing The Wizard of Oz. The central premise of this movie is that Dorothy falls victim to some sort of trauma, be it a tornado sweeping across the prairie and damaging her house, or something more sinister. This is left uncertain, as is often the case in real life, most unfortunately. In any case, the victim, Dorothy, then regresses in the form of classic PTSD with psychotic episodes to the land of Oz. There she assembles her false memories with metaphors for swarms of bombers filling the skies, good and bad witches possibly representing a schizoid mother figure, and 3 male entities who each must overcome their innate stupidity, anxiety, and lack of emotion. These concepts probably originated with comments made by the mother, and therefore appear impossible for the real person they refer to overcome. Probably an ineffective and emotionally devoid father. The intense hope that Dorothy has for this, coupled with the irrational impossibility for the figures to overcome the deficits, is due to her anguish in competing with her mother, and the fact that her father is unable to save her from the mother's tantrums. The FMS relates to the desire for the 3 components of the father figure to be erased and become complete in their respective sense. The hope has distorted her thinking, and there is absolutely no evidence to proceed with the prosecution of this line of storytelling. However, in the end, her mother does believe her, and she returns safe and sound to Kansas, so there is indeed hope. Therefore, I give the film a 1.
I don't know what their intention was with that. I do not know.
Especially because Dorothy was raised by her aunt and uncle, not her. I
mother,
guess Dorothy is her, or Aunt M is her mother figure.
Or is the mother supposed to be the mother, Glinda, that she sees in Oz, and the father figure, surrogate father figure, the 3 male figures, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Lion?
I have no idea, Pete. I just really have no idea. I think Professor E. Loftus is putting a lot of interesting, misdirected thought into this film.
Wow. Thanks, Amazon. It is hard to believe we have been having in-depth conversations about movies since 2011.
You are telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
Season 5 had some great adaptations, like our Meryl Streep Oscar-nominated performances series. We covered adaptations like Kramer vs. Kramer, Sophie's Choice, and The French Lieutenant's Woman.
It's a real Sophie's Choice between those books. You see what I did there?
Yeah. And I don't think it's quite at the level of a real Sophie's Choice.
We also did Snowpiercer for our Bong Joon-ho series, adapted from the French graphic novel Le Transpersonnage. Man, I love that movie.
We had our two-part 1939 series that included adaptations like Gone with the Wind, Ninotchka, The Women, and The Hound of the Baskervilles.
A number of those 1939 movies, like Goodbye, Mr. Chips, also tied into our recent 1940 Academy Award Best Picture nominee series.
Our naughty children horror series had creepy adaptations like The Bad Seed, Village of the Damned, The Innocents, and Children of the Corn.
For our Hayao Miyazaki series, we talked about his take on Lupin III with the Castle of Cagliostro, plus his own The Wind Rises.
Some great listener choice picks too, Viridiana and The Great Escape.
And for our David Mamet Wright series, The Verdict, The Untouchables, and Glengarry Glen Ross.
Plus, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang from our Shane Black series adapted from Brett Halliday's novel, Bodies Are Where You Find Them.
Dive into the sources for all of these at thenextreel.com/originals.
Every book you buy helps support the show. Check out thenextreel.com/originals today and find your next read.